If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And I absolutely love that statement because it's so true, because we're all different people. At the end of the day, we're all humans. We all have different perspectives, skill levels, understanding levels, and you cannot classify anything as a typical autistic behavior, truly, because everyone's presentation is different. And in my lifetime, I have had the privilege of being around many different levels and types of autistic people. And I think that gives me a little different understanding than just my own perspective of how I experience autism. So that's what I want to talk about today, because I just really don't hear any other creators talking about this. And hello, my name is Heather. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, if you're returning, I appreciate you. And as always, if you find this information interesting or you're digging the vibe, tap those little buttons, like button, subscribe, and of course, come back for more. I spent a year working as a direct support professional, a peer support professional with a local autism society in my state. And I really, really enjoyed the experience because I got to work with adults, which is, I think, a kind of forgotten community, the high support needs adults, autistic adults. And I got to spend a lot of time with people my age, older than me, who had level 3 and higher autism. Level 3, there is no higher autism, but also had multiple different comorbidities with their autism. So their presentations were all different. I really enjoyed spending time with them, and a lot of the other providers even made comments like, "Oh, I thought you were just one of the kids," because they all referred to, of course, the infantilization of autistic people, refer to them as kids. So for me, it was a joyful experience. I got to be around people that I kind of understood, and I felt like understood me. A lot of these folks, my friends in that group, were nonverbal, but I did not feel like I had any difficulties communicating with them, because I think I was able to understand some of the needs and requests and things like that from body language, from normal actions that they would take, repetitive actions. The person that I worked with was a female about my age, and we actually had a lot in common. And working with her is one of the things that led me towards getting a diagnosis. Now, she was what would be considered nonverbal, and I really don't like that statement because there's a lot of things that fall under the category of nonverbal. And most of the time, I won't say most of the time, many times, nonverbal is non-communicative. It does not necessarily mean that they do not speak, they just might not be conversational. Some people that are nonverbal do not speak at all and use different variations of communication, like certain devices or ASL, things like that, to get their communication needs met. But in this particular case, this person's communication was often through song and country in particular. And I really loved it because I do relate a lot through songs, movies, quotes, things like that. My repertoire in my head of various different quotes from movies, songs, things like that is immense. So I knew what she meant quite often when she would sing a certain song, and that was her way of communicating with me. I really enjoyed the job because we did have a lot in common. We both like to go sit at the coffee shop in the morning and work on our seek and find word puzzles. We both enjoyed the weekly bowling trips, things of that nature. And we both had very short social batteries. In addition to working with the adults on the spectrum, I also have a grandson who is level 2 moderate support needs and also has some communication difficulties. I do not have any problems most of the time understanding his needs, which in some ways can hinder him because I do kind of anticipate what he wants rather than making him ask for it. But I'm grandma, and I try to create a safe environment for him. The world is hard enough and it will demand enough from him. And so I try to be grandma in every capacity and do what I can to make his time with me calm and peaceful and safe and happy. And if that means that he doesn't have to ask me for a drink in a full sentence or say pleases and thank yous, then that's just fine with me. The point of this video is we are all people. Again, at the end of the day, we are all just human beings with different neurotypes and different presentations and different lived experiences. And we all have needs that oftentimes go unmet. Maybe because we're unable to communicate them, maybe because we don't understand them ourselves. And that's a very common theme, I think, amongst the autistic community, is our maybe inability to ask for the things that we need, be that because we have an inability to effectively communicate, or we're unable to determine our own needs because we have been invalidated so often in our own experience of things. So if you know someone who is autistic, uh, if you have a child that is autistic, if you yourself think that you may be autistic, I just ask you to consider that the traits of autism are human traits. So if you find yourself identifying with things and going, maybe I'm autistic, you may be, but understand that those traits, the defining characteristics, and the things that are used for diagnosis, those are all just human traits. And it's the intensity with which we experience those traits that determine whether or not you receive a diagnosis. It's a different way of thinking. It's not a lesser way of thinking. And to end this conversation, I do want to say that there are many people in the online space that feel that people with lower support needs should not receive a diagnosis, and that self-diagnosis is invalid because it somehow detracts from those with higher support needs. And I can tell you, as someone who provided services through insurance payment to high support needs individuals, lower support needs individuals are not taking anything away from high support needs individuals, nor is anyone with a self-diagnosis, because self-diagnosis does not get any sort of assistance. And honestly, a regular diagnosis for low support needs is not going to get very much assistance either. I'll be very honest with you, even the high support needs adults get very little educated, experienced assistance in their day-to-day lives. So just remember that autistic person in your life, or that person that you see on the internet, is just a person. They're a human being with different traits, different perspectives, different lived experiences than you. And while you might not resonate with everything that they do or say, and you might see that their profile looks so different than the person you know, or vice versa, that doesn't make them any less or any more autistic. The diagnosis of autism is broken down into support needs, with 1 being the lowest, 2 being moderate, and 3 being high. But all autistic people have support needs, period. And often the support needs of the late diagnosed, low level autistics are the hardest to nail down. Because in my particular case, you spend so many years being told that your experiences were not true and were not what you were experiencing, particularly sensory sensitivities and things of that nature, that you really start to gaslight yourself and question your own experience, which leads to a lot of lack of self-confidence, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, things of that nature, where you don't even want to share what you're experiencing or how your brain works or what you've been thinking, because so many times you've been told that that's not right, or that's not correct, or that can't be what's going on with you. We're all just human beings, regardless of support needs, regardless of levels of diagnostics, regardless of self-diagnosis. We're all just humans, and we all just want to be valued for who we are, just like any other human. If you've made it through the video, I appreciate you. Thank you for staying. Thank you for listening. And I appreciate any likes or comments that you may make. And I would love it if you would subscribe so that we can continue having conversations like this around autism, neurodivergence, and how to live a fulfilled and happy life as a neurodivergent person. Thank you. Love you. Bye.